Hi, this video is going to be a basics of how to animate hair, or how I animate hair. I'm going to be covering the water waves and shake method. The other method you'll see is very, I don't have an example for you, but it's very noticeable hair that has been cut into layers and puppet warped with After Effects or a similar program. Wallpaper Engine doesn't play very nice with that kind of style, so I stick mostly to water waves. So your main effect is the water waves effect. Direction is which way the wave is pointing. As you can see now it's going sideways, it's going down, you can rotate it. Perspective stretches the length of it. I pretty much never touch perspective, you shouldn't have to do anything with it. Scale is the distance between the two apexes of the wave. Speed is how fast it moves, and strength is how intense the wave is. Similar to perspective, I do all of my size changing through strength. So what you need to do is set your direction to match the direction you want her hair, or your character's, any character's hair, to move. So in my mind, I'm picturing wind coming in from the right to the left, so it's going to be blowing to the left and kind of in this up and like a vertical to the left-ish direction. So that's what I'm aiming for. So I'm going to rotate the direction slider until I get something like somewhere around here. So it's going at a diagonal to the left. Now we're going to change the scale. Scale is personal preference. I don't personally think you should have multiple waves within a piece of hair. I try and make it so that my entire chunk of hair is one, maybe slightly more than one, but around one wavelength or less. So I'm actually going to go to about there. All of these values will entirely depend on your picture, and they will have to be set on like a per picture basis. And then you change the strength to see how high you want the wave to move. So I think that's fairly good for hair. And then it's affecting the whole thing. So what you have to do is go into your opacity mask, set your value to 0, and hit the clear button. And that erases the entire mask. Once you do that, you can come in with a brush, set your opacity and hardness. Actually, I'm not going to set the hardness up. Set your opacity to 100% and get a okay-sized brush to cover pieces of the hair. And then just paint everywhere that you want to move. Paint it with 100% white. It doesn't matter if you're spilling over, we're going to fix that after. So paint everywhere you want to move with white. So now you have to come back in again, set your brush value to black, set your opacity fairly low, like 10%. And we're going to go back in over everything. So black erases on a mask, white is yes, black is no. So now I can come back in with a soft, low opacity, smaller brush and get, you're not getting details, but you're blending the parts that aren't supposed to move out of what is currently moving. So you want to pay special attention to anywhere that's a hard line, or anything that's not supposed to be moving, like her jaw shouldn't be moving. So I'm just going to, I don't know if you can hear my mouse, I'm just spam clicking away, taking away little bits at a time on everywhere that shouldn't move. And you are going to nick into your parts that you do want to move. There's nothing you can really do about that except for try and be careful. You can reduce it along the edges of some places. I need her neck to not move, and her shoulder. And this little light highlight shouldn't be moving. So you're just taking away all the spots that should not be moving, and only the hair is left. And these little hair ribbon things, I want them to move a little bit, but they shouldn't be making a wave. So I'm going to try and reduce the movement of the top and bottom of it, and then the centers will move slightly more. If I zoom out, there's still a little bit too much on this shoulder, and a little bit too much on her neck. And then this little hair bob at the back, take that away too. So now only her hair, more or less, the background is moving. The only way to prevent the background from moving is to cut your character out of the background, and then just put her, or put them, sorry, I animate a lot of female characters, so I always say her, but in order to get your character to not move the background with like splash over effects, you have to remove them from the background. There's no other way around it. You can use masks and you can get pretty close, but it's just as much effort, so you're not saving any time. One other thing to pay attention to is on this character, it's drawn right here. This is like the crown of her hair. So this is where her hair is attaching to her scalp. It starts here and then goes this way and this way. So this part of her head actually moves noticeably less. So we're going to take away from her crown. So now the hair kind of moves in a wave starting from there. And that's pretty much it for water waves. That's how you add the basic movement. And then from here, you just add to it. And what I mean by that is, if you were going to add, I'm not going to fully animate a character in this video because it would be too long, but if I were to take a waves effect, or a shake effect, and then make her, we'll say she's going to move side to side. So we're just going to quickly, over her whole body, we're not going to worry about Aang at all in this picture, I'm just animating Korra. Well, I guess I can make him not move at all. So something like this. So she's just idly standing, kind of shifting back and forth. We'll reduce the strength a little bit. And I'm going to hide the water waves just for a moment. So what we want to do is, when she moves left, her hair is going to trail behind her. And you do that with flow phase. Or shake phase, I guess it's called. I call it flow phase. I don't know why. So you do that by reducing... I have an entire another video on flow phase. And you offset the time. So it starts at 255. And you reduce it. And that's how you add, like, a difference in movement in one shake. So you would add a slightly offset time by lowering the flow phase to all of the parts that are on the edge. And that'll make it so that, maybe if I raise the speed. So she's going to move left. Actually, I'm going to fix her head. Sorry, I should probably put more thought into these videos before I put them up. So you'll see the water waves are gone, but she moves to the right and her hair trails behind her, and then she moves to the left and the hair trails behind her again. And you can increase that amount by messing with the flow phase. So all of these bob parts of her hair, the poofy parts, they would not move as a unit. They would kind of frill out behind her. I don't know how to explain it. But as you can see now, her hair is moving back and forth with her body, but it's moving at a slightly different time, and it's kind of flowing. So that stacks on top of the water waves we did before, as long as the water waves are in the right order. So if I turn them back on, now they're still going to be waving, but they're also going to be going back and forth. And you can keep doing that. For every effect you have, you can work the flow phase of the hair into it to make a more dynamic movement. If I were to set her to go up and down as well, you may be familiar with this animation because I use it on everything, if you are familiar with my workshop. So if we go up and down, she's now moving at a diagonal. I don't want her to be moving at a diagonal. I want her to be moving in a random position. So what I'm going to do is set the flow phase to 191 and press clear, and it's going to fill it. So now she's going to move in kind of a somewhat random figure 8 pattern. There's math behind that. I don't know entirely how it works. Basically, you're offsetting the phase by some sine wave, and it's doing something. So the time is off by a fraction of an amount, and the flow phase is off by a fraction of an amount, so it makes them not line up, and then instead of going up and down, or left and right, or diagonal, it makes it move somewhat randomly. I have a random shape dynamics video. It's kind of boring, but that's where you would get that from. So now that I have the up and down movement, I can pause the left and right movement and the water waves again, just so you can get a more accurate number. And instead of starting at 255, I'm starting at 191 and working down from here. So we're going to flow phase again. And now her hair is going to be bouncing vertically. And just take a little bit more off. So all the parts that should be kind of light and frilly and move, even this, so this is like a poof at the front of her head. You could even make that move, come in with a smaller brush. So now she's bouncing like that. And we can turn this shake back on, so now she's moving in a kind of random circular motion, and we can make that slightly less, and make this one slightly less, just so it's not as exaggerated of a movement, and then turn the water waves back on. And again, we can reduce the water waves a little bit, because now that we have 3 or 4 effects all working in tandem, they kind of magnify off each other a little bit. This is how I would animate a character's hair. That's virtually it. The only way I would make this more complex is if I had a character whose hair, like for example this back ponytail, you could go into Photoshop and cut this ponytail out and have it move in a much larger arc, and that's more similar to the puppet warping that you see in some animations. But Wallpaper Engine does not play very nice with having multiple layers. You can do it. I don't recommend it if you don't have to, but you can do it. Yeah, so that's about it. So I use a combination of water waves and shake and the shake's flow phase, and that's the basics of animating hair. Hope it helps. Thanks.